Good day. Welcome to the Canadian Immigrant Web Conference series sponsored by Windmill Microlending. This industry-specific web conference for internationally educated nurses is presented by CARE, Center for Internationally Educated Nurses. Note that this will be recorded and posted on our website to watch for those who are not able to attend in person. So first of all, I'm thrilled to introduce our keynote speakers from CARE, the Center for Internationally Educated Nurses, Ruth Lee and Megan Wonkel. Ruth is the Executive Director at CARE for Nurses and an Associate Clinical Professor at the School for Nursing at McMaster University. So Ruth works closely with regulators, employers, professional organizations, and academia to support internationally educated nurses' credentialing process. We also have Megan Wonkel, Program Coordinator at CARE for Nurses. Megan works on the Pre-Arrival Supports and Services program, known as PASS, which provides case management and supports to almost 1,000 internationally educated nurses in their countries of residence, planning, migration to Canada. So before we start, if you have any questions for Ruth or Megan, you can either type them in the chat by clicking the chat button and typing them on the right side, or you can email us at info@canadianimmigrant.ca. So thank you, Ruth and Megan, for joining us today. So please take it away.
Great. So I'll just share the screen. And Ramya, is that showing up yet?
Absolutely. So just go into the, yeah, perfect.
Great.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us in this journey. So today I'm going to share with you some very practical strategies to successfully integrate into the Canadian healthcare system. So my colleague Megan Wonkel and myself will take you on this journey, and we'll share some of the strategies with you so that you can be successful practicing in Canada and beyond. So today's topic, we're going to talk about briefly some of the challenges, share with you what CARE Center for Internationally Educated Nurses is all about, some of the very practical supports that we can provide to those of you who are coming to Ontario through our STARS program, and also Megan will share with you some of the strategies and supports that we can lend you through the pre-arrival program we call it PASS. And also we'll let you know what are the eligibility requirements for you to join us, because we are funded by the Ministry of Immigration Refugees Canada, and also by the province of Ontario. So there's some eligibility criteria we need to share with you. And then we will wrap it up with some very concrete strategies. Okay, great. So I'm sure this is not new to you, the challenges, as much as we know that Canada is a wonderful country to be, and you are very skilled and you bring a lot of skills to this country. But nonetheless, there's some challenges, but that's where CARE Center come in. That's how we can be here to guide you and overcome some of those barriers and challenges and make you successful. So the length of time, oftentimes we hear from our clients that it takes a long time, because particularly for those nurses who have a lot of experience, because the assessment process basically need to know, where you have worked, what kind of clinical experience that you have. So for the newer graduates, probably they have a bit less, because they basically know a bit of everything, because our exam here for you to get the registration is entry level. So you basically have to know a bit of everything and not a specialist. So the length of time can be determined by that. And so we are here to help you to make sure that you will overcome some of those things and get you prepared. Another thing is the language and communication barriers. To many people's surprise, that even you are a native speaker, English is your first language, the terminology at the workplace and the exam and all that may be a little different than you're familiar with, and sometimes you got confused. And let me give you one example. Most of you may train through the British tradition. So in Canada, when someone is going to therapy, they're going to the OT. In Canada, it will mean occupational therapy. But if you come from the British tradition, when someone's going to the OT, it's operating theater. Simple things like that. It can be simple for people that know it, but for others may not know, it can be quite confusing. And also some of the idiosyncrasies can be a barrier, and not to mention a lot of the folks need to go through English testing as well. And another thing is meeting that regulatory requirement. So once the regulatory body, for example, take Ontario, the College of Nurses Ontario, when they assess you, they may say, you are lacking some experience in pediatrics, for example, or some other aspect, and you may need to take some courses. So how do you go about that? How do you navigate that academic bridging options? And how do you study for your licensure exam? So some of those things can be quite a bit of a challenge for some, but again, that's where care come in. And another thing is that once you get that registration, or even before, you may work in other aspects of healthcare before you acquire your registration, you will see that nurses in Canada have a very strong role to play as leaders. That we work with a very diverse interprofessional healthcare team. It's not just nurses or doctors or even pharmacists, well, in most countries would be. So last time we have 26 regulated health professionals, and potentially nurses being one of them, you work with a large number of people. So what kind of expectation that you can have with this group of folks, and how can you be that leader? And also, some folks may find it very strange to have patients and family have a very strong say in what they want in their care. So because cultural awareness is another issue, some nurses from countries that I'm kind of myself one of those, from Oriental culture, we tend not to look people in the eye. I put my head down because I want to respect you, but for others, it may not perceive that way. So another challenge is that, we hear this thing about it's not what you know, but whom you know, right? How do you find a job? How do you land that job? And all that. And for those of you who uprooted yourself, come to Canada, you may have some challenges getting into those networks. And that's where care come in to help you, because we have a lot of networks that we are able to tap you into. Okay, so let me tell you a bit about Care Center for International Educator Nurses. So we actually celebrating our 20th anniversary next year. We start by a team of nursing leaders and folks that work closely with internationally educated nurses, and continuously impressed by the excellent skill set that this group of nurses bring to the Canadian healthcare system. So CARE come to become an agency to help the international educator nurses, and we're funded by the government. And then, of course, with the complexity of getting your registration and so on, we want to prepare you early. So in 2016, we're very fortunate to be funded by the Canadian government for a pre-arrival program. We call it pre-arrival supports and services program, the PASS program, which Megan will tell you a lot more later on. So we assist nurses come from all over the world to become registered nurse and registered practical nurses in Ontario, and also a Canadian program, as I mentioned, PASS. So for last time, we have over 5,000 international education nurses being supported through our program and successful in their career. We have very close collaboration with key stakeholders, such as the regulatory bodies that give you that registration, the academic folks, such as universities and colleges that provide bridge training programs, professional organizations, employment and settlement agencies. And we also have formal partnership. Formal partnership meaning that we actually sign an agreement with 16 healthcare employers through our operational job sharing program, so that you can actually go into those organizations and see it firsthand how nursing is like to be in Canada. So one day when you write your exam, you can relate to the clinical setting. We're also supported by the Canadian Nurses Association through the PASS program to have a mentorship program, so that you can actually become a mentee with an experienced nurse to learn how it's like to be a nurse in Canada, to get you integrated. So STARS meaning support, training, and access to regulated health services. So we all know that we basically all work from home now because of the pandemic, but we actually have physical locations across the province of Ontario, 8 locations last count, and we also serve the whole province online. So right now we're basically 100% online because of the pandemic. So we have a very individualized International Educator Nurse Center Management Model, nursing specific language program, exam preparation courses, employment workshop integration support. I mentioned about OJS and professional development workshops. So I'm going to elaborate a bit more on those. So case manager is the key folks in our program. So Megan is one of the case managers. So you can see at the right-hand corner, we have a model there. IEN is the middle of that circle. And whatever we do at CARE, you are the one that we serve. You are the one that we support. And you are the one who is the partner from the beginning of time, meaning that from registration to employment and beyond. So when you come to us, we'll start with a nursing readiness assessment and provide you with feedback. So basically based on your individual needs and where you come from in terms of your language skill set, your clinical skill set, your academic preparation and so on, and actually what you want out of their nursing career as well. So with someone who is 25, a new grad, compared to someone who is 55, they may have different needs. So we've developed a very individualized action plan with you so that we can be in this journey together. Our case managers provide mentoring and guidance, and also counseling, not just the registration guidance we provide, but we also recognize you are a member of a family. So we work closely in the settlement sector as well to help you. And actually, Megan is one with a settlement background that she may be able to share with you some of those. Employment is one key thing, and also career planning, what you want to do out of your nursing career. There's a lot of opportunities in Canada. Me being a nurse for over 30 years, I can tell you, you will never regret being a nurse in Canada. There's so many opportunities. So language, as much a lot of you are very fluent, as I mentioned, idiosyncrasies of all that is challenging. So when you enter a care center, we provide you with a free language assessment called iCELBAN. We also have workshops that prepare you for that CELBAN exam that the regulatory body may ask you to do, and the licensure requirement and so on. We also have courses for those who need more on nursing communication foundations and enhanced communication strategy for nurses. Very occupation-specific language training, basically training you to be prepared. Because the day-to-day, we can do that along the way, but the language programming we have is very specific to the nursing profession and healthcare. Networking, as I mentioned earlier, is very important that you know how to tap into a friendship and a collegial relationship. So for starters, entering care center, you're provided with a student membership with the RNAO and the RPNAO. We also encourage people to participate in conferences, participate in optional job sharing program. And that program, you will be guided by expert nurse. Many of them are international educated nurses themselves, so they can observe how's it like in a hospital setting, long-term care, and community. Employment, again, many of our participants of the OJS program actually got asked to stay. Oh, we like you, you ask smart questions. So this is one way to get to know the employer and land a position. We also have skill workshops that including how to write a resume and letter that impress the employer so that you'll be sure to call in for a job interview. Many of you do not need to do that in your home country because a lot of them will graduate from a nursing school, you have a job. But in Canada, we have to go through the application process and all that. And we are very, very fortunate at Care Center. We have so many great supporters. We have actually hiring managers from hospitals and community centers to volunteer their time to go through a mock interview with you and basically give you feedback. Because a lot of times when you apply for a job and you don't hear back, or you hear back and say, oh, thank you for application, and that's it. And you don't know what you have done wrong or what you have done right. So in the mock interview, our hiring manager will actually tell you and how to improve. So also we have a members only website to tell you all the jobs posted there, because employers trust us. They trust that we will support you, making sure that you're successful in your new job. Another thing is that we have close to 20 different professional development workshops in career planning and also in clinical skills. They're all conducted by nursing leaders, such as the CEO of the Canadian Nurses Association, the president of the RNAO, and so on, and also many experienced nurses. So how to join us? Very easy. As long as you're a permanent resident, a Canadian citizen, or conventional refugee or caregiver who have applied for PR status, and you have to initiate an application with the NNAS and the college. So we can also assist you with that as well. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Megan to let you know about our pre-arrival program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ruth. Thanks to Canadian Immigrant for this opportunity. So as Ruth has mentioned, PASS is Care Center's Pan-Canadian pre-arrival program. So we are national in scope. And we offer supports and services that are meant to shorten the time that IENs spend from arrival in Canada onwards to professional registration and employment. As Ruth mentioned also, we are federally funded by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. So regarding program duration, participants are encouraged to join PASS as far in advance before arrival in Canada as possible. So we've had participants join anywhere from days to weeks in advance up to literally years in advance. So the further in advance prior to arrival, just the more time we have to work together and the more time people have to familiarize themselves with nursing in Canada and to get through the assessment process. So while we do hope people hear about us really, really far in advance, of course, we can also tailor our services to those who have really quick or imminent departure dates. So we are one of 16 pre-arrival programs. However, we are the only pre-arrival program specialized in nursing. So once participants join PASS, they can have really unlimited access to case management and individualized guidance as much as they have time for and we can schedule. And guidance is, as Ruth mentioned, our excellent case management tool. The guidance is really based upon individual circumstances, assessment pathways, and goals in Canada. And we hold our online meetings on GoToMeeting or Skype generally. We have around 110 hours of programming, all online, access virtually. We encourage live attendance. We have pre-recorded options as a plan B. And our staff actually facilitate the same 11 live webinar topics every month. So topics that include the credentialing assessment process, nursing in Canada, labor market demographics and where the jobs are. We have a big focus on encouragement of rural opportunities. We do employment law and standards, professional writing skills for nurses. We also offer numerous guest webinars, and that's often tapping into the STARS side as well. So we can offer the pre-arrival participants webinars with experts in diverse nursing sectors, which has been really exciting. PASS has 2 online English language nursing specific communication courses. They're called Nursing Communication Foundations and Enhanced Nursing Communication Skills. They both take around 48 hours to complete. The great thing about these courses, they've just been transferred to a new platform, which is great, but people can also do them on their own time, at their own pace. And they can learn about verbal and nonverbal cross-cultural communication, documentation and written communication, Canadian nursing vocabulary and abbreviations, interprofessional practice, and so on. Finally, Ruth mentioned this earlier, PASS offers individual and group-based access to senior and expert nurses through the Canadian Nurses Association, which of course is the national and global professional voice for Canadian nursing, representing 135,000 nurses in all jurisdictions across Canada. So the pre-arrival individual matches are usually based on shared clinical interests, or it could be the province of destination. The purpose of the past mentorship component is to allow an experienced nurse to support the integration of an IEN. Just by positively sharing education, wisdom, life and career experiences through direct and personal online interaction. And Ruth mentioned earlier the importance of networking. It's been really great for expanding the networks of IENs. And the mentors, of course, hugely important clinical and professional resources. Like STARS, we have eligibility criteria. To join PASS, there's really only two. The first is proof that the applicant is in fact a nurse. And of course, that's because we're nursing specific, and we would not want to people to start a really expensive, complex licensure journey if they are not actually a nurse. So that can be proved by you know, a nursing certificate or diploma, a nursing registration, a letter of nursing employment. The other requirement, of course, is permanent resident status. And really any document showing proof that the nurse has been approved to migrate to Canada on a permanent basis. Any document containing a unique client identifier or UCI number can be used. And unfortunately, we're not able to serve individuals on work, student, or visitor visas. And I've listed on the slide examples of the documentation that we can use to verify eligibility. So just to give a quick recap, through both PASS and STARS, Care Center for Nurses utilizes the following strategies to help internationally educated nurses reestablish their nursing careers and really flourish in Canada. So we have pre-arrival mentorship connections on an individual basis, but for those who don't have time, group basis as well, because we often have nurse mentors sitting in on our webinars. We utilize individualized case management to guide and assist nurses on every step of their journey to licensure and employment, regardless of what stage they join us at. We make every endeavor to ensure that eligible nurses learn of our programming through collaboration and referrals from federal pre-departure programs like Planning for Canada, as well as through settlement and employment partners. We have long-standing relationships with nursing professional and regulatory bodies and academic institutions. As Ruth has said, we've been around for about 20 years. We facilitate appropriate referrals as needed to settlement, employment, and language supports. Ruth has already mentioned our OJS and members-only job site. We maintain strong employer connections. And we do offer, as Ruth mentioned, really exciting and diverse professional development opportunities to pre-arrival participants and post-arrival members, from interview preparation to epilepsy, HIV/AIDS, end-of-life care, rural nursing, etc. So it's been a real pleasure connecting with everybody today. Thanks so much to Canadian Immigrant for this opportunity. Please do reach out to Ruth or I at the emails noted on the slide with any questions. We're happy to share program information. We're happy to send you the slide deck from today's presentation as well. So thanks so much.
Great, that was great. Great information. Thank you, Ruth and Megan. We have a few questions that have come in, quite a few actually. So we're gonna get to at least 2 or 3. We're gonna try. And if you have additional questions, you can always email us at info@CanadianImmigrant, or you can email Ruth or Megan. They've graciously said that you can email them. So our first question is from Sumanjit. She asks, hi, I'm an international nurse here on study visa. How can I apply for an RN? So please go ahead.
Do you want me to take that, Ruth, or would you like to?
Sure, you can start.
Sure. So the credentialing assessment process that's done through the National Nursing Assessment Service, that is actually completely separate from immigration. So I'd be happy, Sumanji, I'd be happy to send you information on credentialing assessment and how to get started, with the caveat that I'd start working on permanent immigration status as soon as possible. It is more difficult to become licensed with the regulatory body without PR status. It is a requirement. So again, they're completely separate processes. So you could start the credentialing assessment and work towards meeting your regulatory requirements, but permanent resident status is a requirement. And usually when I get questions like this from participants living overseas who are nurses who are thinking of migrating to Canada, my first piece of advice to them is generally start the immigration process first and get the PR sorted first, because it will be a lot easier for you down the road.
And I'd like you to add that, as you know, with the pandemic right now, Canada is very short of nurses. So they also heard new rule that student graduate from a Canadian program, they can stay and apply for a job. So the regulatory bodies are quite open. If an employer hire you, they can apply for temporary registration for you, and you can write exam and so on. So all this, I will really encourage you to get in touch with us. So get in touch with Megan and myself, and then we'd be very happy to give you more detail and provide more support.
Mm-hmm. Great. We have a few questions that have come in. So I'm going to pick the questions that are on the same topic. So there are two people asking about PASS.
Yes.
One is asking, is this PASS program only for nurses in Ontario or in other provinces as well? And the second question is, I'm a registered nurse from the Philippines and in the process of family class sponsorship. Do I wait till I get the PR before I join PASS?
So the first question, I believe, was about where we serve nurses. So PASS is
in other provinces. Sorry, I'm going really fast. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so PASS does serve nurses going to any province in Canada. It's not just Ontario.
Great. So
yes, we can work with you, whatever province you're going to. The second question was around PR status.
Yes.
So please, I encourage this person to reach out to me early. I'm happy to provide support I can, but you cannot formally join PASS until you have your proof, a document proving that you will be getting your PR status. So any document with a unique client identifier. But I'm really pleased that it sounds like this person has started the process already. So will be a future PASS participant. So do feel free to reach out to me early, even before you get your PR.
Great.
I also like to add that all the work that we do at CARE, we also have partners across the country. So we work very closely with all the provincial immigration agencies, professional agencies. So if you come through the PR program PASS, certainly Megan and her colleagues can link you up with the respective provinces that they can give you support like what we do in Ontario. So please get in touch.
Great.
Yeah. For every participant in PASS, prior to their arrival in Canada, I do prepare a list of people I'd like them to contact once they get to their province, where they can continue receiving supports post-arrival, and so they can transition into other supports.
Great. So the next question is a long one, so feel free to do a quick answer. So what about visas and housing assistance? This is a very broad question, but.
So in terms of immigration visas, we aren't allowed to do any immigration consultation or anything like that, but this person can email me and I'll send them a list of information where they can get support. Sorry, what was the second part of that?
The second part of it was, one was about visas, the second was housing assistance.
Oh, housing. Yeah, so there's a fantastic pre-arrival program that specifically deals with settlement issues called Next Stop Canada. So I do recommend when a nurse joins PASS, actually, if they're not already connected to Next Stop Canada, for their settlement, housing and rentals, how to open a bank account, how to get your kids into school, city orientation. There is a pan-Canadian pre-arrival program that deals specifically with that.
Great. There are a lot of questions. I'm probably just going to get to one or two more. So let's see. There's somebody who's saying they're an internationally trained nurse midwife / midwife already in Canada, but the refugee process is still ongoing. So they're saying, can I apply?
So Ruth, yeah, I know for PASS, a person does have to be a convention refugee. And I believe it's stars, right, Ruth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So still reach out to us, but
Yeah.
but until a person's refugee status is accepted, they would not technically be eligible for our program.
Yeah. So in Canada, midwife and nurses are separate regulatory bodies, right? So I mentioned 26. So nurses is one of the 26 and midwife is another one. So I know that many parts of the world, they are combined, but in Canada, it's separate. So in Ontario, being a midwife, you have to write another kind of exam. So a lot of the nurses become maternity nurses, right? So they become an RN and they choose to work in maternal infant. So there are many of those cases. So that's where we can help you as well. So feel free to get in touch. As I mentioned, everybody has their own stories, their own journey, and everybody's so different. So when you come to us, you are an individual that we will have a tailor-made plan with you, as I mentioned earlier, meeting your needs. So for example, some schools start in September, January, or summer, but in care, the minute you walk into the door, that's where we can start you on that journey. And we are very cognizant about the length of time that you have, because the safe practice period, as most of you know, is 3 years from the day that you start working as a nurse. So the clock starts clicking. So by the time that you settle your family, I must apologize to the men in the audience. The majority of nurses still, last count, 96% of us are women, and then we love our families first, right? We settle the family, the children, and all that, and lo and behold, a year's gone. So I really encourage you to get in touch early. And my famous line, there's no dumb question in case books. Okay, there's no dumb questions.
Great.
All we can do is redirect you, right? So we say, we cannot serve you, but I can tell you to go here, and you come back to us once you're ready.
Great. I'm going to ask you, we're running over time, but there's so many questions. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and everything else can be sent to us on email. We'll connect our participants with you. So the last question is care service entirely for PR clients living in Ontario, or do you also support PR clients living in other parts of Canada? And if so, what does it look like? How do you collaborate with the credential recognition processes of the respective jurisdictions? So they're asking, for instance, College of Registered Nurses of PEI.
You want to take that one, Ruth?
No, actually, Megan, let's address the Pan-Canadian one, and then I can address more specific.
Perfect. So the pre-arrival program is Pan-Canadian. And really the focus is getting people started on the assessment, tips to get through it, getting as far along the process as possible. As we've mentioned earlier, through the pre-arrival program, we do have connections in every province. We do send people a list of supports, and that includes information on the regulatory bodies and specific supports for IENs in whatever province they're going to. So yeah, that is the pre-arrival program. Unfortunately, post-arrival, Care Center is only in Ontario. I'll let Ruth speak about that. But for post-arrival supports, for people who've come to PASS who are not going to Ontario, I facilitate appropriate referrals to places where they can get support. For example, if they're going to British Columbia, I'd send them to Douglas College. If they're going to Halifax, I'd send them to ISANS, which has supports for IENs. Otherwise, if they're coming to Ontario, they transition into the provincial post-arrival programming only in Ontario. And I can let Ruth pick it up from there.
Yeah, so all the past participants will come to us, Care Center, under our STARS program. So some may not know about PASS, unfortunately, and they just join us after they come to Ontario. That's both are fine. So as I mentioned earlier, when you get in to Care Center, we'll take you by your hand, You know, we will work out a plan with you, help you with other settlement. There's a lot of settlement questions. So we work with a team of settlement agencies. So there are specifics, for example, housing. It's not our expertise, but you know what? We work closely with them. So then we can let the folks know to say, okay, this nurse basically is an expert in pediatrics. So she probably like to work in an area that close to a hospital for 6 children, for example, or close to one of the community hospitals that have a pediatric program, right? So we can provide some of those advice to the settlement agencies to make sure that as you move along in settlement and finding your job and all that, everything will be kind of looked after for you. And because it's so individualized, so the case manager can help you. Majority of our case managers are IENs themselves. And also we have someone like Megan, her specialties in settlement. We have another is in education, and another in human resources. And we actually have a new one starting. She's also into settlement. So we have a lot of team members that come together to support our IENs once they come to Ontario. And it's a big province, as you know, right? So we were able to have you, for example, you're in London, we have an office there. So we have 8 places in our province that we can actually meet with you one-on-one in person, although we're just praying the pandemic will be gone very soon, that we can do that again. And we also have classes, online classes as well as in-person classes to help you meet those gaps. You know, when the college tell you that you need to beef up on your pediatrics or your mental health because you have not worked in those areas, or you don't have education in those areas, that you need to meet those gaps. And that's what we can do to help you, link you up with the bridging programs, or engage you in our own workshops so that you can meet those gaps and able to successfully write exam and get your appointment. And what really made me happy as an old nurse is that we were able to have nurses with us for a long time. You come to us, you become a member for life. You like it or not, we loved you. So most recently, I have been coaching a nurse who is pursuing her master's. So I almost become her advisor. And just one example, 2 of our members actually got their PhDs, and they're now teaching. One is at Lakehead, I believe another one is in Laurentian. Yeah, so they become professors. So just so the sky's the limit in Canada being a nurse. Don't underestimate yourself.
Okay, on that very positive note, I'm going to say thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Megan, for those excellent presentations and to take those Q&As. And they've graciously shared their contacts. And you can also write to us at info@canadianimmigrant.ca. So thank you very much. So we will, yeah, great, thank you. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker. So next up is Catherine Steele from English Pronunciation for Success. Catherine, known internationally as a clear communicator, is a speaker, coach, and consultant who trains corporate teams and individuals on the clear speaking skills necessary to be competitive in today's global marketplace. Her experience coaching over 7,000 clients on pronunciation for personal and professional success has made her one of the most sought after speakers on pronunciation in Canada. So if you have questions while Catherine is speaking, please feel free to type them in the chat by, well, you're old hands at this, but typing them on the right side. And also email us at info@canadianimmigrant.ca. This webinar series, this web conference series is sponsored by Windmill Microlending. So Catherine, we're thrilled to have you. Please take it away.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share my slides.
Great.
All right. Do you see my slides on the screen?
Yep, that's perfect.
Excellent. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Catherine Steele. My company is English Pronunciation for Success, and I'm going to be speaking on how do Canadian communication differences affect your job search success in healthcare. I have a Bachelor of Education, a TESOL degree, which is an English as a Second Language training degree, And my original degree is in languages, literature, and linguistics. So these are things that I bring to this topic. And now we're going to include the portion of nursing. You'll see how that fits in as we go along. And I don't seem to be, there we go. How do Canadian communication differences affect your job search success in healthcare? This presentation is for you if you hope to work in nursing in Canada, if you will be in direct contact with patients and family members, and if you know you'll be working with other members of the healthcare profession. We're going to learn which areas of communication support your speaking goals in the field of nursing. And we're going to learn how to adjust to the needs of your audience, support your listener, and develop core skills to deliver your key message quickly and easily. My nursing connection came at a point in my life when I was about 2 or 3 years old and had a horrible accident. I tripped over my tricycle and slit my tongue, my little pink tongue, down the middle. This injury led to a deeper understanding and love for nurses. You see my adult tongue with the stitching and the deformed shape of my tongue, and a career as a communication specialist. This is my graduating photo from Simon Fraser University here in the Vancouver area. I needed to learn how to make all of those sounds again. And so that is how I relate to my clients. I understand the difficulty of making those sounds, and I can translate how you do it. In this presentation, you will learn the biggest red flag in any healthcare interview, how to offer the minimum standard of respect, even in stressful situations or when giving bad news, and how to make directions crisp and clear. So what's the biggest red flag in any healthcare interview? You may have your own opinion, and there will be a lot of red flags. This is the one that comes from a communication point of view. Numbers. Numbers are critical in many professional fields. Nursing is one, engineering is another. You can imagine science, tech, accounting. You need to diffuse your listeners' fears around numbers. Temperatures, amounts, time, dates, ages, weight, frequency, and calculations. These all require very careful, crisp numbers. Let's look at one issue regarding numbers. I'm going to ask you which number is more easily understood when the T sound in the number is emphasized. Is it 50 or 15? Here we go. It's 15. It's 15. I have a massive amount of air on the T. I put little marks to symbolize that, 15, compared to 50. 50 actually has a D sound in the middle in North America. 50. How do you offer the minimum standard of respect, even in stressful situations or when giving bad news? So we're on to topic 2 already. There's a lot more that I could say about numbers, as you can imagine, but let's move on to this one. You need to manage the fear that many people are feeling. They are afraid or very afraid. In a survey, those were the 2 answers they were getting. People were talking about that the people I love are dying, or the people I love becoming seriously ill. Those were the 2 main fears that came up a lot in the afraid or very afraid. We see that very seriously throughout COVID, of course, when we can't be with our loved ones. You need to understand the concern your patients may feel, and people in the healthcare profession are very good at this. There is a word for this, iatrophobia. I'm not sure the pronunciation, which is a strange thing for a pronunciation specialist. It doesn't come up as an option for me. For some people, this phobia of doctors may manifest itself as general anxiety. For others, it could be outright panic. So we have to think about this panic and what it does to sound and communication. Patients are in pain, embarrassed, and afraid. So when you say simple commands like make a fist, but it's about having a needle inserted, take a deep breath, Put on the blue gown. This is very embarrassing. It doesn't attach at the back. People are embarrassed to be nude. Take a swallow of water, lift your foot, roll up your sleeve. Again, anxiety producing. Don't move. And pee in the cup. This is another embarrassing one that causes anxiety and stress and starts to add this filter to a person's ears and ability to understand. Add this to the fact that most people don't have a friend or family member with them, especially now, to help them to hear. So when there are two people, you hear more of the message. And we often give bad or critical news while looking away. We're looking at a chart, we're looking at the person's leg, and we're looking at a screen. This takes away from the body language and the eye contact that we rely on, especially in North America. We are very mobile language in North America in our style of English, and we are constantly reading the facial expression. Masks make it even worse. So to do a panic reducing strategy, you're going to allow the end of your phrases to land. I have a beautiful swan landing. Actually, I probably should have a Canada goose kind of clumping down, because you're going to land the end of your phrases loudly so that the person can identify which part of the phrase is most important. And then, this is probably even more critical, you're going to give the person time to absorb the details. So let that point land and then let the person sit with the point for a moment. Remember that your patient feels dizzy and disoriented. So when you allow the end of the phrases to land, it will sound like this. You're very sick. Wait, wait, wait. But you came in early enough. Wait, wait, wait. We'll give you something for the pain. Wait, wait, wait. The doctor will be in to see you in a few minutes. Wait, wait, wait. So if the person only hears early enough, pain, few minutes, sick, they are going to at least absorb the most important part of your message. So take the time for yourself to identify which of your urgent commands cause your listeners difficulty. Third point, how do you make directions sound crisp and clear? So we give directions all day long in a healthcare setting. You need to sound the alarm. You want some action, you need to have a tone that sounds like action to a North American. Well-emphasized phrasal verbs indicate urgency. Misunderstanding the word stress leads to errors in comprehension. So this is a word stress topic. I'm going to get you to emphasize the second word in the pairs, and it will look like start up, pick up, sit up, white out, and pull out. It's a much louder preposition to indicate urgency and that it's a verb. I want action. If not, the actions will sound like start up, pick up, sit up, wipe out, pull out. Unfortunately, in English, very often we have a noun and a verb that are the same words. So I have to be very careful where the word stress is. If it's a noun, the first part is loud. Pull out. If it's a verb, the second part is loud. Pull out. So let's practice these. You're saying the second part louder. Wash out, pump up, lay back, fill out, turn up, step back, open up. It's no accident that certain final sounds are sharper in medically important vocabulary. I want you to carefully pronounce the final P, B, T, D, K, and G sounds in the prepositions. And it may not be the way you would normally pronounce them in your language, but you need to carefully pronounce it in the way that I pronounce it here in Canada. So wash out, there's a sharpness, wash out. Pump up, lay back, fill out, turn up, step back. I'm trying to emphasize where in my mouth that sharpness is happening. Open up. And these common healthcare words and phrases. Hip, buttock, ab, gut. patch up, tire out, wipe, clamp, splint, bag, tube, blood, node, swab, chart, blot, jolt, flare up, break out, stitch up, wrap around. All right. There are so many terms that come up in healthcare where I believe that it has a sharper ending because it's necessary in an urgent situation. Sick, cramp, wrap, scrape, hot, beat, back, throat, stomach, head, neck, most of the body parts. And people ask me, why don't people understand what I'm saying based on the sentences around it? Can't they understand in context? And the answer is no. We rely on very clear consonant sounds and very clear vowel sounds for that matter. We don't understand in context, or possibly the person hasn't given enough context at the beginning for us to understand the word. This is an example of this. Buy, bite, bide, bike. If you don't have the final sound pronounced accurately in a way that a North American is expecting it, we will not understand. This is bide. He's waiting. He's waiting. Bite, bite. This one, there are 5 words that seem similar to me. The first one, of course, is what we're thinking about, wet, and it's clear a little bit in context. As is this one. It's fairly clear that this is going to be late. It's not going to be lake or leg or lay. But then we get a little more complicated. In this one, someone is patting this person's hand, but the context is not always enough to understand. These are the same 3 words, and you can see that please pat my brow, or we need to have another sterile pad. There's a sterile pad in the foreground, and we're going to pack the wound. Those are all possible in this context. All of these words are possible in this context. Are your own final P, B, T, D, K, and G sounds clear? Are you able to distinguish between these sounds when your clients or colleagues use them? So this will become a creation problem and a listening problem. All right, the third major point, avoid accidentally blaming your listener. To do this, you have to reduce the sounds in pronouns. Many languages stress every word equally, or they actually put extra emphasis to say it's you, it's her, I. In English, we have quiet pronouns. If I say you, I am blaming you, accusing you, I'm telling you you've done something wrong. So that is seen as very aggressive and maybe cause for dismissal because you were indicating that someone was doing something wrong. In a work setting, that's unacceptable. You cannot blame another person without cause. Unfortunately, we write like this, all capitals, and we might put the you large, in love with you, but we don't say that. We say, so I'll give you some more examples of how we don't realize the changes. These are all capitalized, but we don't say them all loudly. These are, this is, I like this one. This is more realistic in terms of how I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, come in. The second part loud is phrasal verb. And then I'm going to quietly say the pronoun where, open, and then open again is loud. Come in, we're open. I need to be careful. If I say, come in, we're open, they're not open, but we're the better ones is what it will sound like. And you don't want to sound like you're bragging or blaming. You are enough. So you are is quiet, enough is louder. And which words are the loudest when people say this? Think about that for a minute. If you said thank and doctor, that's right. Thank you, doctor. The U is quiet. And this one, just for you. Thank you. How would Canadians describe your speaking style? Let's recap. Which sounds create the biggest red flag in any healthcare interview? This is the t versus d in number pairs. This is a consonant problem. You see that there are 12 topics. This is one of the topics. How do you offer the minimum standard of respect, even in stressful situations or when giving bad news? Landing and waiting at the end of each phrase. This is an example of sentence rhythm. How do you make directions crisp and clear? Stressed prepositions in phrasal verbs. So that's a word stress topic, and crisp final P, B, T, D, K, and G sounds, and that's a consonant topic. Which skills are your areas of concern? So I encourage you to write into the chat, hover at the bottom of the screen, find the chat bubble, click on it, and let me know which areas of these 12 topics are your area. I coach people on all of the topics, and people find that there are, out of the 12 topics, there are between 12 and 36 areas of concern. So within each topic, there are things to think about. All right, I look forward to seeing what your areas of concern are. Let's stay connected. I encourage you to learn more about Canadian communication topics by clicking on this link or going to this link. And I have a monthly webinar that you might be interested in, for example. Questions? And I'm going to leave you with this slide so that you have all the ways to contact me. My preferred contact is my phone or text, and my second preference would be LinkedIn with a message. Please don't just connect with me. You need to leave a message for me or I will not connect with you. I get a lot of requests. And I'm Catherine Steele 1. Thank you very much for being part of the web conference. I look forward to connecting with you.
Thank you, Catherine. That was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Canadian Immigrant for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Great. So I have a few questions. So the first one is, I have a rather thick accent, and I find that I have to repeat myself quite often on the phone. Are there any tips you can offer for phone conversations?
The phone. So this is even more important about that swan landing and then waiting. Quite often what people need is time to translate in their mind. And it's from my mom and dad and I on the phone, I need a moment to translate. It may be that there's a poor connection. It may be that they've used a word that I would not normally use. My mom and dad have dentures. That changes how they say things, for example. So if I'm on the phone, I'm going to say a small amount and then I'm going to wait. So, hi, Dad. How's it going? How's the weather? There's a wait. I don't go, hi, Dad, how's it going? How's the weather? He's not going to be able to handle that. So if your accent is already a burden to the other person and you add the phone and not being able to see the visual cues, it's going to be more of a problem. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to land and wait. And over time, you're going to understand more of the problem areas. You know that your name is going to be a problem unless it's exactly like one here and said in a North American way. We are not going to get it. So don't be surprised to be asked for spelling. At the beginning of this conference, I was asked how to pronounce my name. It's a perfectly valid question, so don't worry about that. Be prepared to have ways for the person to understand your name easily, and your phone number, and your company name, and your position, and your request. So the request is probably the only new thing in that phone conversation. All of the other pieces you say a million times in every phone call. So take the time to make those really easy to understand.
Great.
Is that helpful? Hopefully that's helpful.
So And I'm just going to jump in. I have a complicated name. And so be gentle when you correct people, right? So people mispronounce it all the time. And especially if you're on the phone or in person, just be gentle, correct them. It's okay, but do it nicely and gently. So I'm just going to add that.
Yes.
From personal experience. So,
and I think that people are always trying to do their best. If we know that they are friendly and they're trying to do their best, that gives you more benefit of the doubt in that situation.
Mm-hmm. And there are a few questions, but I have a question which says, what is the pronunciation of R? The letter?
Oh my goodness. There are only 2 places in the world that I've found that have the same R. There's one location in Brazil, so not Brazil, but one small part of Brazil. And people who speak Mandarin are actually, they have a bonus. They have a very similar R. It's called English R, but in fact, we don't have the same R as British people. We have our own North American R, and it is not in your mouth. So that's my number 1 tip for you. I would have to have a session with you, and I could very quickly explain what we do, and you would be able to do it, but it's not in your mouth. So if you speak an Indian dialect, Japanese, Spanish, Arabic, you just keep going. Add all the names except for Mandarin and one small area in Brazil. You have a different R than we do, and we have no idea what you're saying. We either think you say an L or a D, and that can really confuse things because there is always another word that sounds exactly the same that has an L or a D. Yeah.
So there's a question that's come in saying, do we have access to Catherine's link? So yes, the link is www.englishpronunciationforsuccess.com. So it's on the screen, but that is the link.
And are you thinking of the previous link? Is this the link?
Maybe this one, yes.
No problem. Copy that into the chat for everyone to access.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Laura. And then there is a question about the previous slide. I think you had those 16 boxes there.
Okay. So are we ready to move back?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're saying, what do you mean by ellipsis?
Ellipsis. Ellipsis is when we take something out. So this machine that we don't use anymore because we use our phone, what is this machine? Most people will say camera, 3 sounds, camera, but we say camera, and we completely remove a piece of that word. That's an ellipsis. So ellipsis in punctuation, if we've got brackets, exclamation mark, and dot, 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 dot is ellipsis. In pronunciation, it means take a chunk out of the word.
Okay, great. So I think if you have questions, thank you so much.
Yes.
And if you have questions, please email us or email Catherine. She's graciously shared her contact with you. So get in touch with her. Catherine, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For
I'm
your
going to
time.
wish everyone the greatest success.
Great. So our final speaker for today at our Canadian Immigrant Web Conference Series for Internationally Trained Nurses, which is sponsored by Windmill Microlending, is Nadine Steele. I actually asked Nadine how to pronounce her name just before I started, so hopefully I'm saying it right, Nadine Steele. So Nadine, yeah?
Yeah, with a Stille, with an N, but got it.
Okay, see? Okay, good example there, Catherine. So Nadine is the founder of Coach Me and is a coach, speaker, consultant, podcast host, and community creator. She draws from her experience, her diverse knowledge, experience, and skills gained through over 15 years of international work experience in 6 different countries across many sectors in both small and global companies to help people thrive and shine. So she is a naturally curious and lifelong learner who loves to make the most of what Vancouver, she's in Vancouver, has to offer her and her family. So if you have questions for Nadine, please feel free to type them in the chat by clicking on the chat button, as you've been doing on the right side. Thank you for joining us, Nadine. Please go ahead. It's all yours.
Great, perfect. Hi, everyone. Nadine here. Thank you, Ramja, for the beautiful introduction, and everyone at Canadian Immigrants for making it possible for me to be here today. Hello, and everyone. Thank you for sticking around to the very end, and congratulations for choosing Canada to be the next place for you to to call your hometown or your home country. And before I keep going, can you confirm that you see the slides in full view? It looks a bit different on my side over here.
We can just see the slides, but it's not quite in presentation mode yet.
Okay. Here we go. That took a while.
That's
Great.
perfect.
Is that better, Laura? Perfect. Thank you. Just to get that in. So yeah, Canada is a beautiful, very beautiful country, and congratulations on choosing this place to be your new home. Today I'm going to be talking to you about confidence, authentic personal branding, and networking. Now, I understand that each one of these topics is massive, and I could talk to you about each one of them for like hours. So this is only going to be a small snippet of information, but hopefully some really practical tips, and hopefully some thought-provoking questions there for you to kind of get you on your success journey there. Now, before I keep going into this, I just want to point out that as a coach, me and my colleagues, we hold you naturally resourceful and creative and whole. And what that basically means is that we think you're the expert in your life. You know what's best for you, even though you may not necessarily know about that already. So as a coach, we would ask a lot of thought-provoking questions to you. There would be a whole lot of listening and observing going on to really help you come up with answers yourselves, and solution to what works for you, because everyone is so individual. So there are certain topics that where coaching is a really empowering tool, and in other areas you might need a bit more consulting or mentoring towards what Catherine, Ruth, and Megan said earlier, but the topics that I have in now all come in with a lot of questions. So, or I'll be introducing with a lot of coaching questions, and then give you a few tips of what has worked for me living in Canada as an immigrant, but also in the 5 previous countries that I lived in. And so without further ado, let's start with confidence. Now, I'd like you to ask yourself, what does confidence look like for you? Because it's a very individual thing. You may perceive someone as confident, and that person may think, actually, I'm not confident at all. This is all just me pretending to be confident. So what does that look like for you? Is it the way you speak? Is it the way you stand up? Is it the way you do certain things? How you maybe have your voice? Is it very low? Is it very energetic and engaging? What exactly is confident, or does confidence mean to you? And what can you do to be your most confident you? Right, because it's so individual, such an individual thing to do. So my top 3 tips in this area actually goes right back to words, and it's a nice tie-in to what Catherine said about words, matter, and it's in this particular aspect, I'd like you to not just maybe take a step back and observe of how you present yourself to others when you talk about yourself, say in a resume or in an interview process, but also what's going on in your head. How do you talk about yourself? Do you say, oh, I'm not, and then old enough, experienced enough, or I have too much of this, or I'm not young enough, I don't have this particular thing? What is it that goes on in your head? Oh, I'm only this and this, or can I just do this and this? You can, there's a whole lot of words that you can fill in to complete that sentence. And every little thing chips on your, or takes a bit of your confidence away. And so I'd really like you to notice what's going on and flip this entire thing. Use positive communication. This is what I can bring to the situation. This is the value I can give you. This is what I can do. This is what I have. This is what I'm good at, right? So every little thing kind of adds into this, and really notice if some of the things that you that is going on are actually, or check in with yourself and see if some things that like thought patterns that come up, if they are beliefs that have kind of manifested over time, or if those things are actual facts, right? Is it really true that you do not have enough of so-and-so, or that you are too young or too old to hold a certain position? Is that really a fact? Or is that basically an excuse? To really notice what's going on. Second tip around confidence is that I'd love you to reflect on both of your personal and professional achievements and celebrate them. Take a moment to celebrate how far you've come. Answer a question like, what are you most proud of? And just list everything. Take a piece of paper and start writing everything that you can think of. And in a professional setting, it's not necessarily just a matter of like, what are your job responsibilities? Because the person next to you probably also has those job responsibilities, but neither, like, no, or the two of you do not perform the job in the same way. There's something unique about the way you're doing it. So write down, what have you achieved? And, you know, is it the way you've made it through your training? Celebrate that you've successfully applied for a visa to get into Canada as a permanent resident, or you've successfully raised a family, or, you know, it goes on and on and on. And obviously that helps also with creating your resume and with the interview process at a later stage. But there's just something powerful seeing all the things that you've achieved and that you're proud of, seeing that black on white on paper. So I'd really encourage you to do that. And also coming back to, you know, words matter. Have a regular pep talk with yourself. How would you talk, or what would you recommend if it was your best friend coming to you saying, you know, I don't have a lot of confidence? And then flip that, where, you know, apply it to yourself. And that's really easily done with either personal mantras or positive affirmations, and things or that could look something like, I am strong, I can do this, I will do this, I am resourceful, or I will succeed. You know, those maybe sports stars or athletes that you admire on screen, or, you know, in real life, or those maybe musicians that you see, you know, fill stadiums full of people, probably not right now during the pandemic, but you know what I mean. They, like, really successful people, they have a mindset shift as well. They need to work themselves up and have that confidence and go out there and perform and do all their best. And they have little, like, huddle sessions before they go out on stage and perform in front of thousands or millions of people sometimes. They're like, yeah, I can do it, you know. It's the same with, you know, people going out on the I don't know, tennis court or football field, whatever. They're all kind of pumping themselves up to do that. And it's not a one-time thing. It's something that needs to be done regularly. So I encourage you to explore positive affirmations or mantras and repeat them out loud to yourself. Maybe in the morning, once you get up, hey, this is, I feel strong. And see what impact that has while you go about your day. And then in the evening, before you go to bed, I am strong. And you know, you realize back that this is what or I am confident, and seeing what has happened throughout the day. And every little bit helps build up that confidence within you. So again, it's like, what is it that you can do for yourself to make you feel more confident? Is it a new haircut? After the pandemic, we weren't all able to go to the hairdresser. Is it a particular dress or item of clothing that makes you feel like you want to stand up taller? Is it something you'd always wanted to do? I don't know, bungee jumping or running a marathon, going for a run, singing on the top of your voices and turning up that volume on the radio a bit more. It's very individual to you, but explore that and you notice what's happening within you. Remember, you're unique. There's only one you, even though there might be other people who do exactly the same job as you do, but there's only one you, only one person who does the things the way you're doing it, and you've got this. With that being said, let's move on to authentic personal branding. That's the second topic, and it's all about the way you're being perceived. How would you like others to perceive you? And what is in your power to influence this? Because not everything is. People are going to judge you. People are going to make up an opinion about you the moment they see you. It only takes a very few seconds to do that. But there is also something that you can influence. So, you know, what is in your power to influence this? How can you do that? And it's the professional branding is something that really comes in, that I've kind of really manifested once I came to Canada. It wasn't really that big before I moved here. And what originally kind of, to be honest, put me off about this topic is like, oh my God, I don't want to be like a slogan on a big billboard, or you know, pretend that I'm someone who I'm not. So it's all about doing it authentically. If you think someone is going to come and knock on your door and going to offer you this job and think, I know this is where you live, you've just been waiting for me to offer you this job, and you're the right person, I'm going to hire you right away. Please let me know when this is happening, because I want to have some tips from you to see how this is working. Otherwise, you'll have to take a step out there and let people know about you, about the beautiful things that you're doing, the way you're doing it. And there are some tips that I have here for you. Again, it's about being authentic. It can be consistently everywhere, in person and online. It can be very draining trying to pretend to be someone you're not, and eventually, you know, it's just going to lead into disaster. So tell people about your authentic self. Tell them what you're passionate about. Everyone I know who talks about something that they're passionate about, they light up. They're like, oh my God, you know, this is what's happening. Or do you know about this latest course? Or I've read this story, or this news research, or have you heard about this success story? People just light up when they're talking about something that they're passionate about. So what is that for you? What can you tell people most about? And it's that consistency and telling it when you're writing your resume, maybe your letter that goes with your resume. It's when you're going to say events, or you're part of a network. One of the ones that Megan and Ruth mentioned earlier, and you may have to write a short bio or an introduction, and you talk with people. Those are the areas that I really encourage you to dive in and be intentional about how you present yourself to them, to others, right? And make good use of social media, be it LinkedIn, which is very big in North America, or any other networks that you feel help you in your job search. And also have a quick look at what other people are doing in professions, who are in professions that you want to go into, or in your area. How are they presenting themselves? What do you admire about others, and how can you apply that to you? It's not necessarily about copying and again pretending to be like someone else. It's choosing pieces and taking inspiration from others and seeing how you can apply that to you so it feels authentic to you, right? Remember, you're amazing. Really, you are. Let that sink in. Everyone brings something amazing to the table. Get out there, show them what you've got. And with that, we'll pause. We're going to the third topic, and that is networking. What is your why for networking? What do you want to achieve going into a networking event? What do you want to get out of it? What's the motivation? And who are the people and organizations that you like to network with, and how can you best connect to them, right? First tip of the three, really just do it. I think that's the biggest hurdle to networking, is get out there and do it, and you'll be surprised what's possible. Online and in-person events, when the in-person events are available again, it's a huge opportunity to meet new people. Online, even here, is like when you know who's going to be the presenter or who are going to be the panelists and speakers, reach out to them beforehand. Say, hello, hi, I've registered for your event. Can't wait to get going and hear what you've got to say. When sometimes for certain events, there's a list as well of all the other participants that will go in, and they can introduce themselves. Make good use of that. Connect with those people beforehand or even afterwards, and write like, thank you, I've really enjoyed this. This is what I've learned. Or tell people, say on LinkedIn, I've just attended this network by a Canadian immigrant on, the nursing series, and this is what I've learned. Thank you to speaker so-and-so and so-and-so. Or, hey, if anyone wants to know more about it, this is the link. Provide some value in that. And this actually leads me to the third tip here, which is the kind of best practice for networking is to give before you ask, but do not expect anything in return, and keep it brief and positive. Everyone always has a lot on their plate. And while I personally feel people are very helpful and forthcoming with support, going in to someone you may have not known before and right away ask for a favor, or it's like, can you do this for me? Or, I want this from you. It's probably not going to work that well. Whereas if you give first, that is something that really resonates. And giving in that sense means giving a compliment, telling them about like feedback, or saying, hey, I know this other person that may be of interest to you as well, because this is what you've got in common. So you're giving the value of an extended network. Or you've read this article, about an event that the speaker or the other person you want to connect with may not be aware of yet. So you're giving something from you, and then you can start building that relationship. It's not necessarily just quick in and out. It's you do it for the long term, for the long run, and you want to build genuine human connection and relationships that will last for a while, and it's mutually beneficial. So with that, I think the only thing to remember is that everyone is wired for connection and wants to belong in some way. And so is just everybody else. What if networking was fun and easy? You can do it. Just get out there. And before we go into the Q&A, and I'd like to hear what you've got to say, there are several ways you can connect with me if you'd like to know more about and experience some coaching, either with myself or any of my amazing coaching colleagues. You can reach out on the website. There's also a newsletter community that you're free to join. Also, if you have any other questions that you don't want to pose right now, or that I may not have the time to answer right now, you can connect with me either on LinkedIn, or my email address is there. And then there's also a podcast that you can tune in or join us on LinkedIn and Instagram. And with that, I think I'm I'm finished on the slides, and time-wise, I think we're still pretty good in there. Are there any questions that I can potentially address right now?
Nadine, thank you so much for that valuable presentation and all the tips you shared. So there are a few questions. I'm going to sort them by topic. So there are two COVID-related questions. Do you have any tips for networking during COVID? That's one question.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is, I'm confident in real life. Any tips on how to project confidence virtually during COVID? So one is, how do I project confidence virtually? And the second is tips to network during COVID.
Okay, so confidence during COVID or online, I would say, again, it's the voice, taking some tips also from what Catherine has said earlier, like the way you come across. Sometimes or some things that help me when you do it, say online, and you're, say, in a webinar like we do right now, or you're even on the phone. For me, it helps when I stand up. Automatically, I stand straighter. I have my shoulders back. Sometimes I just walk. Even sometimes outside, I take consultations outside, be in in nature. That sometimes helps, and really, everyone is a bit different. If I need an extra surge of confidence, I have a Spotify playlist with songs that I turn the volume up to, and I get it's like, okay, let's sing along, move a bit, right? And just get bigger that way, spread out my arms, do things, and like that really helps. It goes back into your voice as well, and goes out. And again, cutting out, if it's online as in writing, I would definitely say look at the type of wording that you use and the way you phrase things. Maybe in certain, it depends on the situation, but not maybe asking for permission as much. Hey, or can I just ask you a question, for instance, as that phrase, meaning you're asking for permission to speak up. You have that word just in there, or only, and so kind of adjusting your language in that sense, and really taking a bit of a self-audit on the type of words that you use would probably help. If there's any specific case, then maybe that person can reach out to me, and I'll be able to support. And networking online during COVID, again, it's webinars like this. There's so much happening. Maybe you can search on Facebook, just typing Google, or I know Ruth and Megan earlier mentioned that they have online webinars as well, and events going on. And that is happening, and literally just connecting with people, say on professional networks, on say LinkedIn, and sometimes even Facebook has professional contacts there as well, and reaching out, just taking that step and saying, hi, I've seen that we're both nurses in BC, for instance. I would love to extend my network. Can you accept my connection request and meet up? Or, hey, I found this article and I know you're working in this area, or we're both nursing students, right? So make it a bit human-centered, and show that you've paying attention to the other person. I hope that answers the question.
Excellent advice, if you ask me. So there was a question about resources.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any resources you can recommend? A speaker or a podcast? Well, you shared your newsletter, information about your newsletter and your website, but I think they want to know if there are other podcasts or speakers that they can listen to that you will recommend.
Any particular topic? Was that?
I think it's just a question about perhaps confidence.
On confidence?
Yeah, that's when it came in.
Not necessarily. I don't know. Maybe I can open it up to everyone else, to all the other speakers, if they know about something, or do you know specifically on confidence, Ramya? I know you're running a podcast.
Yeah, so I Google, Google's my best friend. So
yeah, or just Spotify podcast list, or there's like tons of podcasts out there, but none specifically that come to mind around confidence right now. Maybe that person can reach out to me and we'll have a quick chat.
Directly, yes, that's great. I think that would work.
Yeah.
So there is a question. I'm just going to read it. So how do you sell yourself? Probably on LinkedIn or job posting sites. If you have a gap in work experience, I do not have a solid work history because I cared for my children. Thank you. So.
Well, as a mom of a 5-month-old, I know that looking after a baby is more than a full-time job or a child. So there is. I would be very honest about it, what came up, and be upfront about it. There's lots of people who go through exactly the same thing, and I would tackle it like head on, rather than wait for someone to ask the question, hey, what's happened? Or and that is if the other person cares enough to ask that question, right? Sometimes if there's a gap, people's like, oh, I don't know, I don't even want to know what the reason is, and they don't even, reach out. So I would personally, I would just say what went on, and also bring up all the things that you've learned while you weren't in a formal career or in a job. There's lots of things that come up. Hey, you're a perfect organizer now. You're always, you're highly productive or very flexible now, and lots of different things. Or you're very creative because these are all the projects that you've done, or you've organized events for the kids at school, and lots of volunteering that's gone on as well during that time. There's always something that you can write in. Personal story, the first for most of the first year that I came to Canada, I was not allowed to work because I was waiting for my PR status to come through. And on my LinkedIn profile, I named that entire year my year of learning and exploring. And I've listed all the panel discussions on there that I've went to, the trainings, the networking meetings, everything that I've attended and learned. And I kept track on LinkedIn. Hey, this week I attended this and this. This is what I've learned. Thank you very much to speaker so-and-so for bringing this across. Or I've made so many new connections. Hi, everyone. So I kept track, and even invented the hashtag Nadine in Vancouver, so I could keep track as well of all the things that I've done. And it amounted to a lot of learning and things that I can then apply later on. And there's a lot of opportunities that came out of that, simply on a way of take a different mindset or different view on things. So this is what I did do rather than things I didn't do.
So from your personal experience, thank you for sharing that. So we're going to have to wrap up now. Thank you so much to everyone for attending our first web conference series presented by Windmill Microlending. And a special thanks to our sponsors, Windmill, Microlending, and CARE. And of course, special thanks to Ruth, Megan, Catherine, and Nadine for joining us today and sharing their skills and expertise with everyone. And they've graciously provided their contact information. So there you go. Or if you missed anything, you can also write to us at info@canadianimmigrant.ca. And this web conference is going to be posted online on our website for you to rewatch. So if you have any questions, you missed anything, or you have friends that you'd like to send the link to, please go ahead. So our next web conference is happening on August 13th for internationally trained lawyers, followed by a webinar for internationally trained IT professionals and accountants. So We look forward to seeing everyone soon. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, presenters. You were fabulous. Thank you from all of us at Canadian Immigrant, Laura, Ricky, Sanjay, and Camille. Thank you so much. Okay, take care. Bye-bye, everyone.